Hi, friends. I'm Laura Templeton, founder and chief instigator at 30 Second Success. And this is the 30 Second Success podcast where we ditch the pitch and start connecting with clarity, confidence, and compassion. Today, we're talking about AI detection and how it is misidentifying human generated content as AI. But first, if you're ready to fully step into your voice and communicate what you know you've been called to do, the Brand Success Hub is gives you the clarity, support, and direction to do that without overcomplicating the process. Head to 30secondsuccess.com/hub to learn more. So apparently, good grammar is suspicious now. If you use complete sentences, understand punctuation, know how to structure an argument, and, heaven forbid, use transitions between paragraphs, there's a good chance that someone, notably AI, might decide AI wrote that. As a lifelong English class nerd, I have some feelings about this. So, welcome back to the 30 Second Success podcast, where we talk about clarity, confidence, compassion, connection, and the decisions that shape how we communicate, lead, and show up in the world. Today, we're just diving in to talk about AI, but probably not in the way you're expecting, because I'm not interested in having another conversation about whether AI is good or bad. I'm much more interested in this question. When AI becomes part of the creative process, what actually makes something ours? Maybe even more importantly, are we becoming so focused on detecting AI that we're forgetting to look for the human being behind the words? Let's talk about it, right? So, where this conversation started, this episode actually started because two things crossed my path about the same time. Donna Kravota published an article on Substack that got me thinking about AI writers and transparency. And then Jason Pfeiffer, almost about the same time, shared a post on LinkedIn about what people have started calling AI slop. And those two things collided in my brain because Substack is adding a tool that helps people identify if it's AI written or human written. And then at this almost simultaneously, LinkedIn is adding a tool as well that identifies AI content or AI written content as AI generated as opposed to human generated. And so this really set me off, right? It just really set my brain off. And, so they didn't really tell me what to think. They made me think, right? So I appreciate Donna and Jason for putting this idea out there and also keeping us informed of what's going on. So there's a difference, right? There really is a difference between AI slop and, whether it's AI generated or human generated, there really is a difference. And that distinguish is actually important to everything we're going to talk about today because human beings have always developed this ideas this way. We read something, we hear something, we have a conversation, someone says something that irritates us, someone challenges something we've always believed, and suddenly we're thinking, wait a minute. Then we bring in our own experiences, our knowledge, our beliefs, and our perspective to that idea. Right? That's how leadership is developed, right? That's how thought leadership comes into that paradigm of really challenging ideas and thoughts. Frankly, that's how creativity works. So Donna's article didn't create this episode. Jason's post didn't create this episode. They were the jumping off point. And that's what I love about sharing ideas and putting our thoughts out there. So my thinking came next. And that's exactly how I believe we should approach AI. Right. The English class nerd problem is something that's real for me. Right. So now let's talk about something that's driving writers a little crazy. So AI detection software, there's an irony here that I can't get past. We're using technology, including AI-driven detection systems, to determine whether a human being sounds too much like AI. Think about that for a second. Writers have spent years learning how to communicate well. We learned grammar, sentence structure, transitions, vocabulary, organization, how to build an argument, how to create rhythm in our writing. Some of us actually enjoyed diagramming sentences. I know, right? We're a special breed, people. And now some experienced writers are putting their own writing into AI detectors and discovering that the software thinks AI wrote it. That's frustrating. And for someone who takes pride in their craft, it can be more than frustrating. It can feel impersonal because you're essentially being told this doesn't sound sufficiently human, except who taught AI how human language works? Humans did. AI didn't invent clear writing. It didn't invent storytelling. It didn't invent grammar. It didn't invent transitions. It learned patterns from enormous amounts of human created language. So perhaps we need to be careful about assuming that polished written works, that if a polished writing is evidence of artificial intelligence, sometimes good writing is just good writing. But but the other side has a point, right? So here's what can get to be a little bit frustrating. So now, before anyone thinks I'm dismissing concerns about AI generated content, not, because I understand why readers are frustrated too. We've all seen content that technically says everything correctly and somehow says absolutely nothing. It's polished, it's organized, it has a headline, it 3 bullet points, maybe a rocket emoji, and by the time you're finished reading it, you're thinking, "Okay, but did a human being actually have a thought anywhere maybe?" That's what people are reacting to, and I think it's legitimate. I really do. But here's where I disagree with some of the conversation. I don't think that it's necessarily an AI problem. I think it's the authorship problem. Because there is a huge difference between saying, AI, write me an article about compassionate leadership, and saying, something happened in a client conversation today that made me rethink what compassionate leadership looks like. Here's what happened. Here's what bothered me. Here's what I think it means. Help me explore this a little bit further. Those are completely different creative processes. One being with the machine, the other being with the human. And this leads me to one of the most important things I want you to take away from this episode. But here's a quick reminder. If you're enjoying this episode, please take a moment to like, follow, or subscribe to the podcast. Your support helps us reach more people with stories and strategies that inspire real connection. Here's the point that I want to make, right? And this is something really important I want you to take away. The human should be the jumping off point. Your ideas should come first. Your experiences, your observations, your expertise, your questions, your frustration, your curiosity, your story, your faith, your opinion. You were your weird thought that popped into your head while you were standing in the grocery store. Or then use AI. Get questions, challenge your thinking, have it identify something you might have overlooked. Ask it to organize your scattered thoughts, research an idea, find holes in an argument, help you tighten a paragraph, help you turn your thoughts into a podcast outline. But give it something human to work with first. Because if you simply ask AI what you should think, eventually your content stops sounding like you. Not necessarily because the sentence sound robotic, but because the thinking isn't yours. Oh, that's a much bigger problem. So AI can assist my thinking. It shouldn't replace it. That's my line instead. AI can assist my thinking, right? It shouldn't replace it. And that means I push back. Sometimes AI gives me something and I say, no, that's not what I meant. Or that doesn't sound like me, or you're missing the point completely, right? I've had arguments with AI. I really have. Because it just doesn't, sometimes it just doesn't get me. And I need to make sure that it understands the point I am trying to make. That's why I will have conversations with AI till I feel like we've hashed things through. Or my personal favorite is, where did that come from? Like I will ask it, I will say that, right? Because using AI collaboratively doesn't mean accepting everything it produces. In fact, I would argue that thoughtful AI use requires more critical thinking, not less. You have to know enough about yourself, your expertise, your audience, and your values to recognize when the tool gets something wrong. That's where human judgment enters the process. And human judgment is something we cannot outsource. So, should we disclose our use of AI? Believe we should be transparent about meaningful AI use, but I don't believe we should apologize for it. Those are very different things. If AI helped you brainstorm, research, organize, challenge, edit, or repurpose your ideas, there's nothing wrong with saying that. Transparency builds trust, but I also think we need nuance. Writers have always used tools and assistants, editors, proofreaders, researchers, spell checkers, Grammarly, thesauruses, transcription software, Google, and friends who lovingly say, Laura, I have no idea what you were trying to say in the paragraph that you just sent me, right? Thank goodness for those friends. Assistance doesn't automatically eliminate authorship. So instead of simply asking, was AI used? I think there's a better question. Who owns the thinking? Whose experience is this? Whose perspective? Whose opinion? Who made the final decisions? Who is willing to stand behind it? Who takes responsibility if it's wrong? Those questions tell me much more about authorship than whether an AI tool was involved. We also need to respect the people who don't use AI. This part of the conversation matters to me. You don't have to use AI. If you're a writer who loves sitting in front of a blank page and wrestling with every sentence yourself, please do. If moving a comma 17 times brings you joy, have at it. I mean that. The creative process itself can be deeply meaningful. Nobody should feel pressured to use AI simply because everyone else seems to be doing it. But the opposite should also be true. Someone who thoughtfully uses AI shouldn't automatically be considered less creative, less authentic, or less intelligent. Using AI is a choice. Not using AI is also a choice. Both deserve respect. The question should be whether we're being honest about the choice we've made. What if AI is the reason we got to hear the idea? Now, here's the part of this conversation that fascinates me most. Imagine someone who had spent 30 years doing something extraordinarily well, They have knowledge, experience, stories, insights, maybe an idea that could genuinely change someone's life or business, but they don't consider themselves a writer. They sit down in front of a blank page and nothing happens. They know what they want to say. They just don't know how to organize it. So for years, the ideas stay inside their head. No article, no books, no podcasts, no posts, no conversations. Nobody gets to benefit from what that person knows. Then AI comes along, and suddenly that person can talk through their idea, organize it, explore it, turn it into something another human being can understand. Now ask yourself, would you really rather never have heard the idea? That's where this conversation becomes much bigger than whether someone used ChatGPT to help structure a paragraph. AI can lower the barrier between having something meaningful to say and being able to communicate it. That doesn't diminish human creativity. Used thoughtfully, it can give human creativity another way out. So get to know the author. This brings me to where I've ultimately landed. Maybe we need to spend less time trying to catch people using AI and more time getting to know the people we're listening to. Read their work, listen to them speak, watch them, how they show up over time, pay attention to what they consistently believe. Look at whether their actions align with their words and ask, does this sound like them? Can they explain their idea? Can they defend it? Can they stand on it? Do they actually believe it? Does their content teach me something, challenge me, encourage me, help me see something differently? Because if I trust the author, the idea aligns with what I know about them, if they can stand behind it, and if the content makes a meaningful difference, then I have to ask, how much does it really matter that AI helped them find a better way to communicate it? So here's the 30-second pause. Before you judge someone's content because you think AI may have been involved, ask yourself, do I trust the person behind the words? Does this reflect what they consistently believe and stand for? Can they explain it? Can they defend it? Did it teach me something, challenge me, encourage me, or make me think? And if you're the creator, ask yourself an even harder question. If someone removed every beautifully polished sentence, would the idea underneath still be mine? That's the test. Transparency matters. Authorship matters. Original thinking matters. Human creativity matters. But trust isn't something an AI detector gets to decide. That's still a very human decision. Maybe we've been asking the wrong question. Instead of asking, did AI write this? Maybe we should be asking, is there still a human being worth listening to behind it? Because AI tools are going to change. The technology will get better, detection tools will change, platforms will change, the argument will probably change, but our responsibility as communicators shouldn't. Bring me the ideas, bring the experience, bring the curiosity, bring the discernment, bring you. Then choose the tool that helps you communicate it and take responsibility for whatever carries your name. That's authorship. And that's where I believe trust begins. Be sure to check out the Brand Success Hub, where we help you turn your ideas, experiences, and expertise into meaningful content and stronger brand communications using AI as a partner, not a replacement for what makes you uniquely you. Because the goal isn't to sound more like AI, it's to use AI to help you sound more like yourself. Learn more at 30secondsuccess.com/hub. I'm Laura Templeton. Thank you so much for joining me on the 30 Second Success podcast. And if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss next week's inspiring conversation. And until then, stand in your brand, trust your voice, and remember, success is just 30 seconds away.